For Politico, as a follow-up to Paola's question, I'm wondering if your sense of the delay, because we understood that the joint statement was imminent and now not much is happening, is your understanding that what's happening this week regarding Ukraine is delaying any progress when it comes to the trade talks? Thank you.
I think this is two completely unrelated matters that have no impact in terms of timing, one respect to the other. We have an agreement with the US. That agreement is taking effect in some of its parts. We have a joint statement that we're working on with our counterparts. Olaf has told you where we are, and this is the reality. The talks on Ukraine are a different topic and have its own framework and timings. Jacob from remote, and then I'll return to Edith in the press room.
Thanks, Olaf. Similar question, but basically, is there... Right now, we're paying higher tariffs than before August 1st, right? But none of the lower tariffs have come into force. So the longer that happens, the more tariffs our exporters are paying. And for the US, is there any pressure from the EU side other than saying it's the ball's in their court? At what point, after a year, after a month, after 3 months, will we decide, okay, we need to do more than say the ball is in their court? Because the whole goal of this deal, right, of accepting the 15 rather than 10% tariffs was to have lower tariffs on cars specifically. So I'm just wondering, or is there anything that the US is asking for? Is there commitments from the car industry for investments that they're waiting for? Last week we were told the reason for the delay is that the Americans are busy with other things. But then they did pass an executive order for Japan lowering their car tariffs. So they could very easily have included the EU in that, right? It would have been 2 letters probably.
Jacob, we don't do the work of scheduling for the US. I'm not entirely sure why you refer to a 10%. Let me remind you that we have a 15% omni-comprehensive tariff, including MFN, which, as Olaf has said time and time again, is on average 4.8. This for the EU is not added. And also you say higher tariffs. Compared to what? I also recall some announcements from the US side in April on which the tariffs that they were referring to were much higher. So the higher or lower, it depends at what point in time or to which announcements you are specifically relating to. We have a reality, which is an agreement with the US that has a 15% across-the-board tariff, MFN included, also for a number of industries, including cars, and then 0 to 0 tariffs in a number of other industries. It is an agreement that we believe is strong and is the best we could have under the current circumstances and the ambitions of the US administration. Of course, we expect the US to take the further steps that are part of this agreement, but I don't believe we are at a stage in which we can put a timeline to these engagements. We take the reality of today. This is where we are, and the rest is hypothetical. We count on the US taking the steps that are necessary on their side to fulfill these agreements. Olaf, sorry.
I have nothing to add to that beautiful, beautiful monologue, Ariana. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Jacob, you have a follow-up. And then I had promised Edith.
Yeah, what you said is completely wrong. It's not true that the tariffs were higher before. The tariffs were 10%, now they're 15%. You say the reality of the deal is that cars included. The reality is that right now they're not included. Cars right now are not included. So I don't know what reality you're referring to. The reality I'm seeing, the EU is currently paying 27.5% on tariffs and has been for what, 14 days now?
Jacob, what is the question apart from your considerations?
The question is, you're saying that this deal is in force. The reality is the deal is not in force. So what will the EU do for the deal, with the key component of the deal being the cars, to come into force? Is there at any moment any leverage that the EU has other than saying the ball is in the US's court?
Thanks for your follow-up question, Jakob. We have nothing on substance to add. We have been very clear time and time again that the US has made a political commitment. You're talking specifically about cars. The commitment from the US is that the 15% across-the-board tariff will capture cars. We don't know precisely when that will happen. We know that it will happen. And I would also just point out that you said that, that these tariffs are being paid by EU exporters. No, they are not. They are being paid by US consumers. Ultimately, that's who picks up the bill. We've been very clear from the get-go in this saga involving tariffs that we believe tariffs are taxes, that they don't do any good, they harm the global economy, they put additional pressure on both sides of the Atlantic. That remains our view. Nonetheless, we have worked extremely hard to try and extract the best possible outcomes for the European Union in this very challenging scenario. And I remind you as well that in parallel to the work we've been doing to make the best of this challenging scenario, we are signing trade deals with partners around the world which will improve our competitiveness, open up new export opportunities and give us substantial ways to offset any damage that such tariffs may do. Second of all, we are taking strong action to remove the barriers within our own internal market. And the clear evidence, the clear economic evidence shows that if we were to remove those tariffs that prevent the single market from being all it can be in terms of trade, in terms of financial services, in terms of freedom of movement, workers, etc., that it would vastly outstrip any loss to our economy from potential tariffs now or in the future. So all that work is happening. It will continue to happen. We look forward to the US implementing its political commitment, and we will take the work from there.
We have about 15 minutes left together. I have a number of hands raised from remote and in the press room. Jacob, it's the third question you're asking. I would ask you to keep it very short, and then after this one, I will ask you to pick it up bilaterally with Olaf, because I think it's fair for colleagues to be given the floor as well. Jacob.
Sure. Basically, are you saying this deal is good even if the US does not fulfill the part of the 27.5% on cars going down to 15%? Because US consumers are paying the tariffs anyway, so this deal is good for the EU also if the US does not deliver on the cars?
Thanks for your last question, Jakob. At no point have I said that this is a good deal, quote unquote, for the EU. What we have said repeatedly from here, what our President has said, what our Trade Commissioner has said, is that if you look at the current global trade picture, if you look at the various deals that the US has signed with trade partners around the world, if you look at the commitments that the US has made on top of the executive order that has already been implemented, we feel strongly that we have succeeded in giving the European Union the best possible position in terms of competitiveness, in terms of continued trade, in terms of allowing our exporters to do what they do best. So yes, we look forward to the US implementing their final commitments, and in the meantime, I repeat, the work we are doing to strengthen our network of global trade partners and the work we are doing to remove all possible barriers within our own internal market gives us a strong position to remain competitive and to remain agile in strengthening our economy going forward.
Other questions on this? Edith, I had promised you the floor.
Thanks very much. Edith Hancock with Dow Jones. Just to follow up on Jacob's question as well, and also I just wanted to pick up on some of your wording, Olaf, earlier. You said that you're waiting for the Commission is waiting for the US to follow through on its political commitments. So is there actually a growing concern within the Commission that that follow through isn't going to happen, that they won't follow through? And then with that in mind, what would the US have to not follow through on, be it cars, be it exemptions that they may, that you guys might be pushing for, in order for the Commission to feel that it's necessary to put retaliatory tariffs back on the table?
Thanks for your questions, Edith, but really we're going way too far into the realm of hypothetical scenarios here. We have a clear commitment from the US on all the areas I have mentioned. We look forward to them implementing those commitments as soon as possible. We are not going to go into any further hypothetical scenarios from this podium today. I'm happy to repeat what I've said before, which is that our countermeasures, which are now suspended, can at any moment be unsuspended. And we have discussed with our Member States in detail potential future countermeasures that could be used should they ever be necessary. But that's not where we're at right now. Right now, we're waiting for the US to implement its commitments. We're working with them to finalise the joint statement, and we are close to doing so. We just need to get the final details organised. And when we have that work done, we'll look at the picture then and take it from there.
Other questions on this? Yes, go ahead.
So we can also take it up bilaterally if this is not the right time, but tensions between the US and India have surfaced. Does that encourage the EU to push forward with its own agreement with India? And if you have sort of any updates on that agreement going forward?
Thank you, but we have to be very strictly. There's a lot of conflating going on here today, dear friends. So let's just try and separate all the issues and look at them for what they are. So we're not going to comment on tensions or otherwise between third countries. When it comes to the ongoing talks between the EU and India to try and finalise a trade agreement before the end of the year, yes, that work continues. This would be an enormous breakthrough in terms of the two largest democracies in the world having in place a structured agreement from which to build trade, investment, cooperate across a range of other areas, technology and so on. So the goal remains to get that done before the end of the year. That's a very ambitious timeline. If you look back at the frequency of the meetings between political principals in recent months, you'll see that, this work is people are taking this seriously because the political commitment is there from the top level. And so, we're in August now. Things are a little quieter. But, from September onwards, you will see that this will ramp up to the same frequency again with the same end goal in mind. So that's all I can say for now. We look forward to that work continuing, and we are ambitious in our hopes that we can get something done before the year is out.
I see two hands raised from remote. Carl, and then Lisa.
Yes. Question about diversification, since it is seen as a priority in the new trade context. Can Olaf update us on the Mercosur agreement? We were expecting a formal proposal from the Commission in late June already. So do you have a new timeline? And could the Commission make this proposal in August when things are more quiet, as you said, or do you think it will be later in the fall?
Carl, actually, this is a question that we answered last week. I don't know if Olaf wants to give the gist of it again, but otherwise, since we really have 5 minutes left together, I would ask you to check what Olaf had said on Thursday, I believe, on this matter. Lisa.
Thank you very much again. Olaf, I had one question for you on the US side, but I think you've answered it. I was going to ask, has the actual joint statement been finalised or not yet? I was just looking for the status of that, but you've just said you're working with them to finalise the joint statement. But I was also going to ask about China and wondering if anybody in the EU has opened some work monitoring the continuing surge in exports from China. I noticed yesterday in China that the government there is talking about how the EU is under pressure and the tariffs that the US has imposed, which are 30%, are having an impact on its economy, and they were talking about an increased diversification of trade to the EU. Have you anything to say on that? Thanks.
Thanks for your question, Lisa. I remind you that we have set up a new body to look at potential impacts of the current trade configuration in order to anticipate at the earliest stage any possible changes in trade patterns, any possible harmful increase in imports into the EU from China or elsewhere. To date, as far as I'm aware, I'll double check that for you, but to date I don't think any evidence has indicated any such harmful surge. But we set up this new body precisely that we would have in the most structured way possible the information at the earliest date to be able to analyse it in detail so that if we need to take any further action, we can do so fully armed with the best equipment and at the earliest possible stage. So we are keeping a close eye on global trade flows, how they may be impacted by the changing picture, and we do so, as always, in the interests of protecting our single market and making sure our exporters are not adversely impacted.
Thanks, Olaf. Other questions for Olaf? Not the case. Other question? David, is it for Olaf? No. Okay. Other questions for us today? Go ahead.
Ondine S. from Euronews.
Yeah, it was working.
I have a question on the Stop Destroying Video Games Citizen Initiative. So if I'm not mistaken, the verification process was scheduled yesterday. So did it take place? What was decided? And maybe it's too early, but is the Commission planning to pass legislation to prohibit video games maker to kill their games, basically? Thank you.
Looking at colleagues, I'm not sure if it's you.
Yeah, I actually have responsibility for Citizens Initiative as well, believe it or not. I'm not familiar with the precise details of this, so I'll have to check and come back to you in the afternoon if that's okay.
Okay, unless Leah has anything to add from her side, I'm looking at her. Oh, perhaps why not, Leah, if you want? Thank you. It's a joint effort. Let's see if we don't provide you with all the details now. Olaf and Leah will coordinate in the afternoon.
Yes. So yes, indeed, I think I'm not aware if any decision has been taken yet, but just maybe to recall the process on how those who launch the initiative can receive an answer. So within 1 month, there is a meeting organized with Commission representatives so that those who put forward the initiative can explain a little bit better what it is about. And then within 3 months, there is actually also an opportunity to present the initiative at a public hearing at the European Parliament. And then I think the last step is then within 6 months that the Commission will say which action, if any, it proposes in response to the initiative. And as you mentioned, a response could be putting forward a legislative proposal. But I think, you know, we are still quite far from that.
Thanks. Is it a question on this? No, but is a question for Leah? Okay, let's go ahead then. Thanks.
Kulamaya for Euractiv. Just a quick question on foreign subsidies regulation. Given that you're launching the review, how many total probes have been conducted in the EU, and how many of those did the Commission launch on its own initiative? And of that share, which share was targeted at Chinese firms?
I'm not a super statistics person. I mean, you need to. So we have a part on mergers, I think, where we have quite a large number of notifications that have been. I mean, I remember we had, I think, 1 or 2 cases where we went in phase 2, but these were then approved after commitments. I think we have a couple of cases on initiative cases, but none of these cases are yet in kind of a full in-depth probe, so they are still in this preliminary review where we are able to send questions to the companies. And then we also had a few cases on the public procurement side where we opened an in-depth probe, but then the companies decided to withdraw the tenders. All this to say that I can come back to you more specifically on the thing, really with the numbers.
You have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Was the foreign subsidy regulation brought up at the recent EU-China summit?
That I would not know. I don't know.
I'm not aware of this topic being raised specifically. I think the outcomes of the summit have been commented with statements. I believe the foreign subsidies regulation is a piece of legislation that the EU is implementing all its international partners equally, and we are of various cases we have. ongoing or that have taken place in the past years since it was adopted on China specifically. I think we don't have a years planned. Other questions for Leah? Not the case. Thank you. Other questions for us today? David, last one. We are at the close of the 1 hour.
Thank you for your indulgence. David Price, Your Democracy. The European Media Freedom Act came into force a couple of days ago, and I welcome it as has its aim to protect journalists and their sources, and specifically independent journalists. I'm wondering, as there is a case in Belgium of an independent journalist being graded by the Belgian police, and the authorities not giving the warrant for this, the computers and everything else have been taken for a month and a half now, and I'm wondering how this particular act can help him to recover his independence as a journalist and his equipment as well. Can you help in any way?
Thank you, David. I think indeed the European Media Freedom Act is a very important piece of legislation. It has entered into force, as you were correctly recalling, on Friday. The President herself has welcomed this important milestone. She has said a free and independent press is an essential pillar of our democracy. With our European Media Freedom Act, its protections to journalists continue their crucial work and safety without interference or intimidation. The Media Freedom Act is to provide a framework. I'm afraid that as on the specific case you're referring to in this press room, we will not be able to enter into the specifics of it. It is a matter for the national authorities. We can never enter into the specifics of cases, but if my so otherwise, I believe it's just a general framework. David, I'm afraid it is 1 hour. It was the last question. I understand it's very case. As I said, we're not in Thanks a lot to everyone for having participated. Interpreters, geeks, we will be back on Thursday for our next press briefing. Goodbye.